Welcome to the Making of Me podcast, where we explore life transition, personal growth, and creating meaningful relationship at every stage of life. Our three guests is Hanna Bankier, a sought-after coach, change catalyst, and speaker dedicated to guiding mamas through the bed launcher phase, helping them adapt, find joy, and reclaim purpose as their children leave the nest. Hannah holds a master's in organization development, is an international coaching federation certified coach, and he's the founder of our Bed Launcher and Working Solution Group. She combined decades of professional experience with personal insight as a mom who has successfully launched her own children, helping others women navigate this transformative stage of life. It's really a pleasure and honor to have you on the show, Hannah.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much. So, Hannah, what were some of the challenges that shaped you into who you are today?
Some of the challenges have shaped me into who I am today. I think everything that is a challenge and a blessing shapes you.
Yeah.
So it's not just the challenges that, although you might have to dig a little deeper to really find yourself at your core. So a lot of what I do is informed based on my own experience of these major life transitions, like what is happening in our lives when we are in a completely new, unfamiliar territory, whether that is a geographical, right? For me, I'm an immigrant. I live in California in the United States, but I grew up in Sweden. So I operate every day in not my culture, not with my people, not in my first language. So that shapes you. And the way that I show up, now I've been here for a long time, but in the beginning, one of the biggest shifts for me was how my personality shifted depending on which country and which language I was in. And I was like, wow, I'm not even funny in the US. Nobody laughs at my jokes. So that has to do with just being comfortable with the language, but also cultural references. So it allows me to create a different version of myself. So that has definitely been part of shaping me, of who I am.
Yeah.
And I've gone through many major life transitions. So happy to talk about all of them.
Yeah, amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. So, Hanan, what exactly is bed launcher and how does it differ from the traditional concept of the empty nest?
Yes, thank you. So, Birdie Launcher to me is this concept, right, of launching yourself as the parent. And I work primarily with mamas. In the same time as your little kids spread their wings, leaving their nest, you also get to refeather yourself and become a free bird and launch yourself.
Yeah.
So when I sat and really thought about what do I want to call this, I decided that felt very much more liberating and positive and full of opportunity. And what I don't like about the term empty nester, I reject it for a few different reasons. And it comes down to that same thing. Like I really believe that words shape our experience.
Yeah.
And how we name it influences how we relate to it. So empty nest to me, when I think about that, I think about some sort of a dried up, shriveled up nest, maybe with a leftover feather, but it's like, not a warm, fuzzy place. And I want my home to feel warm and inviting, regardless of many kids live here or not.
Yeah.
I also don't like the term empty nest because how the F is the nest empty if I'm still in it?
Yeah, so true.
And we see culturally, especially in the West, this idea that we disregard women post reproductive age. Right? In other cultures, women become wise and we seek their counsel and we want to spend time with them. And in our very capitalistic, productivity, beauty, youth oriented culture, women is just like, all right, so you're done. But I still live here. This is my home. The nest is not empty. And then thirdly, the reason why I picked Birdie Launcher is because regardless of how many kids you're launching, if you're launching your first, your last, maybe your only kid, this same transition is happening. So I don't like to think about, I'm going to start living my life or wait until the kids have left. And that's when these transitions are happening. No. They happen from the onset. And when I work with parents, ideally, we start when your oldest is already in high school. And that's when we start moving through the different phases of the transition, handing over adulting to the kid, figuring out our relationship and how that's going to change. We don't wait until they've left. All of those things are so much easier to do when we're still under that same roof or in the same nest, if you will.
Yeah, amazing. I think it's an amazing concept. Yeah. Yeah, amazing, amazing. Baby launcher. Yeah, that's amazing.
Yes.
So can you walk us through the three phases of baby launcher, which is the grief, relief, and joy?
Yeah, absolutely. So, with all major life transitions, we go through these different phases. And transitions is different than change. So, the change usually is something that happens on the outside, right? But where the transition is happening within us. So, when we really want to be informed and take it and allow for all the different feelings that come up, I say that launching your kids out into this world is like living in a soup of emotion. You're so proud and excited,
Yeah,
right? They're 18, they're ready to leave. High five, we did it. They're still here and they're ready to launch, and that's super exciting. And there's a lot of grief and loss, and you miss them terribly. So the SOAR framework that I have developed starts with exactly that. We sit with the grief. We really just make space for all of those feelings. What does it feel like when your kid is no longer down the hall? What does it feel like when you're not going to see them? What does it feel like when maybe they don't call you back, or maybe they don't even text you back because they're off doing their thing? I have a mom that I was working with, and she described it like it's as if the umbilical cord just have to grow
yeah,
and it becomes longer. Another mom said, it's like somebody have chopped off a body part. I'm no longer whole. So however that manifests for you, we need to make space for the grief. And again, living in the United States, we don't do grief well at all. We want to skip over it. We don't want to feel any uncomfortable emotions. It's just how it's supposed to be. Come on, get on with your life. And I'm saying, no, we're slowing down. We cry because it's important. If it wasn't important, there would be no tears.
yeah,
But it is important. Your relationship is changing. So we sit with the grief. We don't get stuck there. That's the key. We don't get stuck there. We don't want to be resentful and get stuck in like all of that. I think we all can picture a mom that has gotten stuck in the grief and the resentment, and that's not where we want to hang out. We want to give it the time and the space that it deserves. And then we move on to the relief. Hands-on parenting is hard.
yeah,
And it's a lot that you absorb. I refer to us as sometimes we're like the emotional airbags, right? Our kids come to us with all sorts of things and we just sort of absorb.
yeah,
So parenting is no walk in the park. And in that, there's lots of things that you actually won't miss. You might not miss socks on the floor,
yeah,
dirty dishes in the sink, doors slamming, a little attitude coming your way, or not being able to fall asleep until you hear that front door opening and your kid comes home at 2 and you want to go to bed at 11,
yeah,
right? So just feeling that relief of like, oof, I'm shedding all of those things that are no longer something I need to carry is also important. And then we turn to the last phase of the Birdie Launcher journey, which is the joy. Now, when you are no longer bogged down by hands-on parenting, full mental load, figuring out homework and carpools and dentist appointments and all of that, what is available for you? What kind of yummy story do you want to write? What next chapters do you want to write about your life? Now, when there's this time, energy, and maybe money that is available for you. And many of us mamas, in the States, in the Western world, most parents have their kids leave when they're in the early 50s.
yeah,
And if we assume we're going to live till we're 80 or 90, that's another 3, 4 decades of
yeah.
life. So what's in store for you? Let's explore that. So that's the joy. So the three phases, we sit with the grief, we revel in the relief, and then we
Mm.
turn towards the joy.
Wow, wow, wow. The first phase being the grief, then the relief, then the joy. Yeah, amazing. So, what are some of the common mistakes parents make during transition, and how can it be avoided?
Yes, some of it is there's a few different mistakes that the parents and mamas are making, and believing that this is just part of how it is and that this doesn't take the time and attention it really deserves is one common mistake, is that we're just going to sort of skip through it,
Mm.
that we don't have a framework or a plan. And as I say, like anything worth doing is worth
Yeah,
doing well. And transitioning your kid into the world is worth doing well. So preparing more for a 2-week vacation than this major life transition is a common mistake. So I want people to really slow down and have a framework, create the plan. That's a very common mistake. Another one is to go at it alone and thinking that you don't need community and shared experiences. And I think we as humans are really herd animals. We need our village, if you will.
Yeah.
We need the resources, the wisdom, the previous experiences to not feel so lonely in this experience. A third very, very common mistake is not evolving your parenting. So if you think that you can parent your emerging adult who is about to leave your house and go out in the world the same way you did when he or she was 13, you are mistaken. That level of parenting will not be welcome, and
Yeah.
most likely your kid will revolt and they will just now determine the amount of contact they would have with you. So in here, when kids go off to college, many of them do it in a different town or a different state or maybe even a different country. And it is the first time the kids have much greater autonomy about how they show up in the relationship with you as a parent. I was working with one mom, her daughter did not communicate with her for 3 months. That hurt.
Yeah.
That's a lot of worry. That's a lot of heartache. But this mom was holding on to wanting to parent her child in a way that was no longer age appropriate. So when we skip the evolving our parenting, that's a major, major mistake. And I think here, some of that is that as moms, we're worried that we will no longer be needed as parents. So I want to just debunk that myth. You will always be
Yeah.
needed. Parenting does not end. College sure as hell does not parent, but your parenting needs to look different. You need to meet your kid and continue evolving your parenting as they are evolving. So another one is another mistake that commonly made is to skip the grief and just think, oh, it's just how it is. You know, we should just do it. Of course, the kids are supposed to leave. We don't want them to live in the basement playing with train tracks in their 60s, right? This is just natural. So as if something that is natural happening somehow should erase the feelings that you have.
Yeah.
So I don't believe that that's true. So I go back to sitting with the grief. And then the fifth common mistake is to not really tend to the many shifting relationships. There's obviously, as I named, evolving your parenting with your soon flown bird. That is a relationship. You might have younger siblings at home. So now when the older is gone, there's going to be more attention put on
Yeah.
them and they may not like it.
Yeah.
Some of these younger siblings have been like, oh no, I'm living in the shield of my older sibling and you're putting all this time and attention to them. And now my shield is gone. And I was like, no, I didn't ask for all of that parenting attention to come down to me. Or they might bloom and say, whoa, there's space for me now. But that relationship will shift. And then if you're partnered or married, then your relationship with your partner will also shift. Because what happens when we no longer focused on the administrative part of our relationship and organizing around the family when it's just you and I here? Do I even like you anymore? Who are you? Are we romantically connected or are we co-parents, roommates living in the same house? So those are some of the common mistakes parents are making in this phase of life.
Amazing. Thank you so much for sharing. And I think it's really, really a whole lot, and learning how to kind of grieve and relieve and yeah, have joy in it. I think it's very, very key. And thank you so much for sharing. So how can parents turn that launch a bed launcher phase into an opportunity rather than a loss?
Yeah, so there's so much opportunity here. And there's opportunity to come together. There's opportunity to create community. There's opportunity to create your next chapters of your life. This, when I work with moms, it is really interesting when we get to this question. I'm like, what do you want your next chapters to, or your next decades of life to look and feel like? And so many of them don't have any answers.
Mm.
They have put themselves right at the bottom of the laundry basket for 25 years. They have put their kids first, their husbands first, everybody else ahead of themselves that they don't even know what they like. And some of them is like, well, in my 20s, so before I became a mom, I liked, and that may or may not be what you like
Mm.
anymore. Because you have lived a lot of life since you were single and before you became a parent. And all of these things have changed you and shaped you. So being up clubbing and dancing to 3 o'clock in the morning might not be what you
Yeah.
like
Yeah.
anymore. So we're sitting with it and just like peeling off the layers and really asking the questions of like, what do you like? What do you want? What would hit the spot now? And also as women, we're usually so socialized to take care of everybody else's needs first. So how do we put ourselves in that same bucket of what are my needs? What are my likes? It takes a lot for some of us to get rid of that social. I want them to know that parenting is always going to be there and that the foundation that you lay with your kids when they're still in your same nest is the building blocks for the relationship that you're building with them for the rest of your lives together. So I don't want to scare any listener to say, oh,
Yeah.
my kids have already left. Is it too late? No, it's
Yeah.
absolutely not too late. I'm just saying it's easier when you're still under the same roof because you see each other, you can test something new and different,
Yeah.
and then you can say, that didn't quite work. And that's just harder when there is distance. But that idea that you get with your kid to co create your mutual relationship
Yeah.
is well worth the time and the effort. And I did this with both my kids. I did it, we started in senior year in high school. And this was not a one and done conversation. This was many conversations. But I said, hey, you know what? Our relationship's going to shift now when you leave the house. And they're like, huh, what? And I was like, well, of course, other than the traditional handing over the adulting, I will no longer make your dentist appointments. You know, you got to
Yeah.
cook more by yourself, like all of that practical stuff. But also our relationship will change. So what do we want it to look and feel like? And in the beginning, they look at me like, what? She's totally lost it. What is she talking about? This is
Yeah.
completely new and unfamiliar. So I said, well, I will always be your mom. So we will never be peers. There will always be a difference where there are things that are always going to be my responsibility because I'm your mom. But as you're an emerging adult and as you're coming into adulthood, we're going to be more, closer. So what do we want it to look and feel like? I'm not going to parent you like I did when you were 10. So what kind of guidance do you want from me? Do you want me to be an advisor for you? Do you want me to be a consultant? Do you want me to be a coach? And my kid's like, no, mom, you're coaching for a living. I don't want you as a coach. Fair point, fair point.
Yeah.
Do you want me to be your mentor? So what we did was that we rewrote my job description
Mm.
and we rewrote my title. So I'm still mom, but I went from mom, hands-on mom, to mama mentor.
Mm. Yeah.
And as a recovering type A and, control freak, sometimes I forget. So sometimes I step out of bounds and sometimes I start calling the shots and robbing my kids of their autonomy. And what is so beautiful since we've gone through this process is that it's very easy for them to course correct me in the moment.
Yeah.
And they can just say, Mom, I don't think that's part of your job description anymore. You're right. Thank you.
Amazing.
Yes, thank you for that reminder. Let me try again. How about I ask more questions and come with less unsolicited advice? How about I step back and let you come to me? How about I make sure that you know that I am always, always here for you? Whether you're stumbling, whether you're falling, whether we're celebrating, whatever that is, I am here for you. And let me have you invite me into the places of your life where you need my guidance or you're looking for support,
Yeah.
as opposed to me offering it. You should just blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to hear that.
Yeah. Thank you. Which this has really been amazing. And the fact that, yeah, you get to discuss with your children. And I think that will actually more like make them, yeah, things far ahead at watch it. And the fact that as it goes on, they begin to understand more and they understand more, they get to appreciate every of the conversation you had with them. Yeah. It's really amazing. How can they reach out and where's the best platform?
Yes, thank you for that question. Yes, so I work with mamas one-on-one. I do a lot of workshops. I go in high schools around the globe talking about this concept, helping moms get ready or parents get ready. I also work with groups sometimes. And I have my website called the Birdie Launcher, Birdie with a Y, launcher.com. And I have a resource for this audience, in particular, a freebie that is an easy guide to download that you can find at Birdie Launcher /free offer. I'm also on Instagram and with the handle Birdie Launcher, again, Birdie with a Y. And I am just so grateful that I get to do this work because I know how important it is. I know that we need framework, we need a village, we need to be able to be there. And I just want people to get excited about it. There's the many, many lasts, but there's also the many, many firsts.
Yeah, thank you so much, Anna. This has really been amazing. Thank you so much for reminding us that yes, the nest isn't empty. The mamas are still there, ready to evolve and to thrive. To grab their free guide, just check the show note out, just the way she promised you. And then you can actually dive into more materials and you can check the website too. It's going to be on the show note. Yeah, it's really a pleasure and honor having you on the show.
Thank you so much for having me.